what was the biggest like transitional issue for you from IB to university life? So like it could be academic, it could be like environmental factors like homesickness, but like what was the main issue you faced and how did you overcome it?
For me, the main issue, I'm just going to be straight up. Okay, right now, for your information, I'm studying at Taylor's University in Malaysia. The plan actually was for me to go to UK, but then COVID struck, so we decided as a family against that. For me, the biggest transitional issue was, to be honest with you, quality of education. Right now, my dad always liked to say that my experience at SJI, because of the standard of education there, it spoiled me that I expect so much from other educational institutions right now. So I think that's one important thing which you all should really cherish at SJI is the quality of education. Um, I I've always valued it, but after entering university, I began to see why um, why SJI was so respected by people and by their students, and I really miss being in the classes at SJI and the lectures at university. I'm not sure how it is for Nicole and Yingxuan, but for me, it is to say the least night and day difference. So yeah, that is my perspective as a student studying in a local private university.
Nicole, you want to go first, or we sort by distance?
Okay, I think for me, as weird as it sounds, I think for me the biggest issue was homesickness. And I know it sounds weird because I'm in Singapore, which is technically like, oh yeah, Singapore, Malaysia. But I think for me, it was a very strange mix of where it was very much more striking because I'll order things like prawn mee, but get something completely different. Like I would think it's familiar, like prawn mee, but then get something completely different. Or I'll start speaking in Malay and then people are like, oh my gosh, are you Malay? I think like in terms of like the culture, it's very different. So I had to like completely adjust to a completely new set of like a new culture essentially. And I think that even small little things like even the shock of having to buy detergent here, you convert it back, you're just like absolutely like not worth it. Like how would you spend that money? I think initially in year one, especially at the start of my first semester, that was really hard and very trying. But I think that definitely there was a lot of support that I did get here at university. And I think that having on-campus jobs really did help me get through that. But I think it was just a very shocking experience living alone for the first time and like spending on like things like toothpaste. You know, you don't really think about it, but when you see the conversion rate, you start to think about it a little bit more. So yeah.
So I'm in the States right now, so it's like 11:30 about. So I guess it's quite funny that Nicole brought up the Malay example because I think the sort of cultural difference is even more here. Like I tell people I'm Malaysian, I don't even have to speak Malay, and they ask me if I'm Malay just because the concept between Malay and Malaysian is a little bit sort of stretched than me. So I guess I remember when I was a freshman, it was definitely hard to transition just because people talk about different things. People talk in different ways, and there's a lot of getting used to sort of the differences in culture. You sort of have to understand like, you know, what their background is, how high school for them is like, and so sort of a lot of things that you have to pick up during conversations. You might get lost once in a while, but it's sort of integrating in a completely like new environment. So that was challenging. As for like education wise, that was also like a pretty big difference for me. Everything is really unstructured. Like you don't have to do anything at all. You're free to make a lot of your choices. And like with more choices, like that makes your decision harder. Like you start looking at your friends and what they're doing, and you start to think a lot about it, and it can get a little bit hard to make decisions sometimes. And sort of it's for me, it's sort of like a first step into a real world where you have to make choices and you kind of have to live with it later down the road.